Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of my tutorial video channel. This video is on interaction between demand and supply and determination of equilibrium price and quantity. This means how the interaction between demand and supply determines the equilibrium price and quantity. Now, in our discussion, we should remember the difference between demand and quantity demanded. When we talk about demand, we talk about all the points on the demand curve. That means, if this is the demand curve, quantity and price, then all the points on the demand curve are enveloped in the term demand. And when we talk about quantity demanded, we talk about a particular quantity demand, a particular point. That is, say at P1 price, quantity demanded is say T1. Correct? So let's get into interaction between demand and supply and how that interaction impacts the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Now, equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity mean the price at which the total quantity demanded is equal to total quantity supplied. That is, there is neither excess nor shortage in the market. Suppose this is price per unit. We make a few columns. Price per unit, quantity supplied in second column, quantity demanded in third column, and excess or shortage in fourth column. Let 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are 5 different price levels. Quantity supplied, let they be 14, 10, 7, 3, 1. And quantity demanded, let 3, 4, 7, 10, 12. So, when price is P, quantity supplied is 14 and quantity demanded is 3. This means there is excess supply in the market. So there is excess. Excess supply. So when there is excess supply, there will be competition among the sellers, that is the producers. And that competition among the producers will push the price down. So let price becomes 4. And quantity supplied becomes 10. As we know, the supply curve is upward sloping, and the law of supply states that other things remaining same, when price of a commodity increases, quantity supplied also increases, and if price of that commodity falls, quantity supplied falls. This is law of supply. That is why the supply curve is upward sloping. So when price is decreasing from 5 per unit to 4 per unit, quantity supplied falls from 14 to 10. And since price has fallen, quantity demanded increases. That we get from the law of demand, right? Still there is excess supply. Here there is excess supply of how much? 11 units. Here excess supply of how much? 10 minus 4, 6 units. So there will be again competition among the sellers to sell their commodities, and that competition will push down the price further. So price becomes from 4 to 3. As prices fallen, the suppliers will supply less. The supply has fallen from 10 to 7. And you see, as price has fallen, quantity demanded increases from 4 to 7. Now, this is the equilibrium price, and 7 is the equilibrium quantity. Correct? If we look from the other side, say at price 1 per unit, quantity supplied is 1 and quantity demanded is 12. That means here shortage of supply. This means excess demand. Excess demand. By how many units? By 11 units. So here at price 1 per unit, demand is more than supply and the gap is 11. So there will be competition among the buyers, the purchasers, to buy that commodity, and that competition among the buyers will push the price up. So price will move from 1 to 2. As prices increased from 1 per unit to 2 per unit, producers will sell more, that is, they will supply more, because more price means more profit if they supply more. So supply increases from 1 to 3. At the same time, since prices increased from 1 to 2, quantity demanded has fallen from 12 to 10. Still there is excess demand or shortage in supply. Still here is shortage of supply or excess demand. By how many units? 10 minus 3, that is 7 units. So here again there will be competition among the buyers to buy the commodity which is relatively scarce, and that competition among the buyer will further increase the price from 2 to 3. As prices increased, suppliers will find it more profitable to supply more. So quantity supplied will rise from 3 to 7, and since prices increase from 2 to 3, quantity demanded will fall from 10 to 7. Here no shortage and no excess. That is, all the potential sellers are able to sell their products and all the potential buyers are able to purchase their commodities. So there will be no shortage or no excess. That is the equilibrium price. That is, 3 is the equilibrium price and 7 is the equilibrium quantity. All other prices will indicate disequilibrium. That means at all other prices, either demand is more than supply or supply is more than demand. Equilibrium is reached at that price where quantity demanded becomes exactly equal to quantity supplied. That is the reason it is called market clearing price. Now, let us illustrate this graphically. Okay, and for that I have to erase whatever I have written on the whiteboard till now. Okay, so I take liberty to erase this part. Yeah. On x-axis we measure quantity and on y-axis we measure price. This is the demand curve D and this is supply curve S. And demand curve and supply curve intersect, say at this point. This is say point M. So equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Now take this price, say P1. At P1 price, supply is Q1, but demand is, say this is Q2. So at P1 price, supply is OQ1 and demand is OQ2. This means there is excess supply, so there will be competition among the sellers to supply their commodities, and that competition will push the price down. Ultimately, price will fall to P sub O, where demand will be equal to supply. On the other hand, take this price P2. At this price, quantity demanded is say Q dash 1 and quantity supplied is say Q dash 2. So there is more demand related to supply, that is there is excess demand or shortage in supply. So there will be competition among the buyers to buy the product, and that competition will push the price up, and ultimately P2 will reach P sub O, that is at the point of intersection where demand is exactly equal to the supply, that is quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied. Okay, so this is the way equilibrium price and quantity are determined by the intersection of demand curve and supply curve. Right? Now I shall draw few diagrams to see how that interaction takes place. Correct? And all the diagrams will depict different scenarios. So let me erase this part. Constant supply increase in supply, decrease in supply, here constant demand, increase in demand and decrease in demand. So in the first interaction we get constant supply and constant demand. X, Y, on X axis we measure quantity and on Y axis we measure price. This is demand curve, this is supply curve. Say the demand curve be D and let the supply curve be S. So demand curve and supply curve intersect at point say M. So OP sub O is the price and OQ sub O is the quantity. That is OP sub O is the equilibrium price and OQ sub O is the equilibrium quantity. And what is the scenario? Constant demand and constant supply. Then constant demand and increase in supply. Again on X axis we measure quantity, on Y axis we measure price. Remember, when you depict something diagrammatically, so long as demand curves and supply curves are concerned, start from equilibrium. You assume that equilibrium exists in the market. After that you show what variable is changing and what is its impact on the equilibrium price and quantity. But start from the equilibrium position. Always do that. So let it be like this. Let the demand curve be D, supply curve be S. So equilibrium price is P0, equilibrium quantity is Q sub O, and equilibrium price P sub O. Now demand is constant and supply is increasing. When supply increases, it moves rightward. So S1 is the new supply curve when supply is increasing. As a result, this is the point of intersection between S1 and D. So new equilibrium price and quantity become, say this is P1, this is P1. Now constant demand and decrease in supply. Again, start from the assumption that equilibrium exists in the market. On X axis we measure quantity and on Y axis we measure price. Let the demand curve be D and supply curve be S, and they intersect at this point. Say this is N. So equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Now demand is remaining constant and supply is decreasing. When there is a decrease in supply, the supply curve will move towards left. So let the new supply curve be S1. Let this point be S. Now here the constant demand curve and original supply curve are D and S and they intersect at point N. So equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. As supply falls, demand remaining constant, the supply curve will shift towards left. So S has shifted from S to S1. Here the supply curve shifted towards right from S to S1. Here supply is falling, so the supply curve is shifting from S to S1. Let this be the equilibrium point, say S. This is the new point of intersection between supply curve and demand curve. So new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. Okay, so here it is constant demand and constant supply. The equilibrium point is P sub O, where the demand curve and the supply curve intersect, that is at point M, and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Here constant demand and increase in supply. Let D be the original demand curve, S with the original supply curve, they are intersecting at point R. So equilibrium price and quantity are P sub O and Q sub O respectively. As a result of increase in supply, the supply curve S is shifting toward right, that is from S to S1, and S1 and D intersect at point S. So new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. That means price is falling and equilibrium quantity is increasing. Here equilibrium price falls, here equilibrium quantity increases. And what happens here? Constant demand and decrease in supply. Let D be the demand curve and S be the supply curve, both intersect at point N. So equilibrium price and quantity are P sub O and Q sub O respectively. As supply decreases, the supply curve S shifts from S to S1, and S1 and D intersect at point S. So new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. That is, price is increasing and quantity is falling. Now come here, increase in demand and constant supply. We measure quantity on x-axis and price on y-axis. Let D be the demand curve and S be the supply curve. They intersect, say they intersect at point U. So equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Now supply remaining constant, demand is increasing. When the demand increases, the demand curve shifts parallelly rightward. So the new demand curve will be like this. Let this be D1, D sub 1. Now D sub 1 and S, the original supply curve, intersect. Say at this point, this is V. So new equilibrium price is, say, P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. So price increases from P sub 0 to P sub 1. At the same time, quantity demanded increases from Q sub 0, Q sub O to Q sub 1. From Q sub O to Q sub 1. Now, increase in demand and increase in supply. Again, start from equilibrium position. let D be the demand curve, S be the supply curve, and let they intersect at point T. So P sub O is the equilibrium price and Q sub O is the equilibrium quantity. Now what is happening? Demand is increasing at the same time supply is increasing. So let's first shift the demand curve rightward as demand is increasing. Let D1 be the new demand curve and supply is also increasing. So let S1 is the new supply curve and they intersect say at point K. So this is the equilibrium quantity Q1 and equilibrium price remains same P sub O, but this is not necessary that the equilibrium price will remain same. Suppose this is demand curve, this is supply curve. Demand increases from D to D1. This is equilibrium price, that is P sub O, and this is equilibrium quantity, that is Q sub O. Now demand increases, so the demand curve shifts parallelly rightward to say D1. Say this is D1, but the supply increases more than the increase in demand. Say this is S1. You see, as a result of this, equilibrium quantity has increased from Q sub O to Q sub 1, but equilibrium price has fallen from P sub O to P sub 1. In both these cases, demand is increasing and supply is increasing. Both are increasing. Here, the increase in demand is equal to increase in supply. So there is no change in price, no change in equilibrium price. Only the equilibrium quantity increases from OQ sub O to OQ sub 1. Here the same thing is happening, that is demand is increasing and supply is also increasing, but increase in supply is more than the increase in demand. As a result, equilibrium price has fallen, equilibrium quantity has increased. So whether there will be any change in price or not, that depends upon the relative strength of the change. That is the relative strength of the change in demand and supply. Correct? Now come to increase in demand and decrease in supply. On x-axis quantity, on y-axis price. Again start from the equilibrium position, that is D is the demand curve, original demand curve, S is the original supply curve, and they intersect say at point S. So equilibrium price is P sub O, equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Now what is happening? Demand is increasing but supply is falling. So when demand is increasing, the demand curve shifts rightward. Say D1 is the new demand curve. At the same time, supply is falling. So the supply curve will shift leftward parallelly. So let this be the new supply curve. So S1 and D1 intersect at this point. Say this is point L.
So new equilibrium price will be, say, P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity Q sub 1. So equilibrium price increases as well as equilibrium quantity increases.
Correct? Now, decrease in demand and constant supply. Decrease in demand and constant supply. On x-axis we measure quantity, on y-axis we measure price. This is the demand curve, this is supply curve. D is the demand curve, this is the supply curve. The demand is falling, supply remaining constant. So when demand falls, the demand curve shifts parallelly leftward. So let D1 be the demand curve. And the demand curve D and original demand curve D and supply curve intersect at this point. Let this be point N. So OP sub O is the equilibrium price and OQ sub O is the equilibrium quantity. Before the change in demand. Now as demand is falling, supply remaining constant, S will remain as it is, but the demand curve will shift leftward parallelly. So D1 is the new demand curve and D1 intersects the original supply curve at this point. So equilibrium quantity is Q1 and equilibrium price is, say, P1. So equilibrium price falls, equilibrium quantity also falls. Why this is happening? Because demand has fallen, demand has decreased. Correct? Now, decrease in demand and increase in supply. Quantity and here measure price. Again start from equilibrium position. Say D is the demand curve and S is the supply curve and both intersect at this point. Say this is point D. Sorry. This is point D, that is point of intersection. So equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Right? Now demand is falling and supply is increasing. When demand is falling, the demand curve will shift leftward parallelly. Let D1 be the new demand curve. And supply is increasing. When supply is increasing, the supply curve will shift rightward parallelly. So let this be the supply curve. S1. So S1 and D1 intersect at this point. Say let this point be E. S1 and D1, that is demand has increased. Sorry, demand has fallen. That's why demand curve has shifted leftward or downward and supply has increased. So the supply curve has shifted rightward. So the new point of intersection is E, that is the intersection point between new demand curve D1 and new supply curve S1. So new equilibrium price is, say, P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity Q sub 1. So equilibrium price has fallen and equilibrium quantity has also fallen. Sorry, equilibrium quantity has increased because D1 and S1 intersect at point E. Yeah, equilibrium quantity has decreased and equilibrium price has fallen. And finally, decrease in demand and decrease in supply. on x-axis we measure quantity, on y-axis we measure price. Let D be the demand curve, S be the supply curve, and both intersect say at point F. So OP sub O is the equilibrium price and OQ sub O is the equilibrium quantity. Now demand is decreasing as well as supply is decreasing. So when demand decreases, the demand curve shifts parallelly leftward. So let this be the new demand curve D1. And supply is also decreasing. So when supply decreases, supply curve will shift parallelly leftward. So let this be the new supply curve. Correct? So D1 and S1 intersect at this point, let it be point G. So new equilibrium price will be this one, say P sub 1, and new equilibrium quantity will be Q sub 1. So equilibrium price is increasing and equilibrium quantity is falling. Correct? Yeah. So this is all about interaction between demand and supply and equilibrium price and quantity. This is part 1. Here I have explained how the interaction between demand and supply impact the equilibrium price and quantity with 6 different scenarios. Here we have taken constant demand, constant supply, so there is no change in demand curve and supply curve. Equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub O. Here constant demand and increase in supply, so there is no change in demand curve, but the supply is increasing, so the supply curve is shifting parallelly rightward. So original equilibrium price was P sub O and original equilibrium quantity was Q sub O. As supply increases from S to S1, the new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. So price is falling and quantity is increasing. Here constant demand and decrease in supply. Let D be the original demand curve, S be the original supply curve, and both intersect at point N. So equilibrium price and quantity are P sub O and Q sub O respectively. And as supply decreases without any change in demand, the supply curve shifts parallelly leftward from S to S1, and S1 intersects demand curve D at point S. So new equilibrium price is P sub 1, new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. So equilibrium price increases and equilibrium quantity falls. Okay. And here increase in demand and constant supply. The supply curve remains as it is and the demand curve shifts parallelly rightward, because increase in demand means the demand curve would shift parallelly rightward or upward. So original demand curve D and supply curve S intersect at point U. So equilibrium price and quantity are OP sub O and OQ sub O respectively. As demand increases without any change in supply, the demand curve D shifts parallelly rightward to D1, and D1 and original supply curve S intersect at point V. So new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. That means equilibrium price increases and equilibrium quantity also increases. And here increase in demand and increase in supply. Original demand curve is D original supply curve is S and both intersect at point T. So equilibrium price and quantity are OP sub O and OQ sub O respectively. As demand and supply both are increasing, the demand curve will shift parallelly rightward from D to D1 and the supply curve shifts parallelly rightward from S to S1. So the new point of intersection, that is the intersection between D1 and S1, is point K. So equilibrium quantity is Q1, Q sub 1 and equilibrium price remains P sub O. But this is not necessary. If the change in supply is relatively more than change in demand, then price would change, or the change in demand is relatively more than change in supply, then the price would change. But this is coincidence that the prices remain constant. And here increase in demand and decrease in supply. So let D be the original demand curve, S be the original supply curve, and both intersect at point S. So P sub O is the equilibrium price and Q sub O is the equilibrium quantity determined by the intersection of demand curve D and supply curve S at point S. This is point S. Now demand is increasing and supply is falling, supply is decreasing. As demand increases, the demand curve shifts parallelly rightward from D to D1 and supply is falling. The supply curve shifts leftward from S to S1. As a result, the new point of intersection is E. Let it be E. No, sorry, let it be L. We're taking it L. L is the new point of intersection between D1 and S1. So equilibrium price becomes P sub 1 and equilibrium quantity becomes Q sub 1. So equilibrium price increases and equilibrium quantity also increases. Now here this is increase in demand and constant supply. The original demand curve is D and original supply curve is S and both intersect at point N. So equilibrium price and quantity are OP, equilibrium price and quantity are P sub O and Q sub O respectively. As demand is decreasing without any change in supply, the demand curve shifts parallelly leftward from D to D1 and let this be the new point of intersection. Say this is H. H be the name point of intersection between D1 and S. So the new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. That means equilibrium price has fallen from P sub O to P sub 1 and equilibrium quantity has also fallen from Q sub O to Q sub 1. And here decrease in demand and increase in supply. D and S are the original demand curve and supply curve respectively and both intersect at point D. So equilibrium price is P sub O and equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. As demand decreases, the demand curve will shift parallel leftward. Let the new demand curve be D1 and supply increases. So the supply curve will shift parallelly rightward. Let S1 be the new supply curve. So the new demand curve and new supply curve intersect at point E. So new equilibrium price is P sub 1 and new equilibrium quantity is Q sub 1. That means the equilibrium price has fallen and equilibrium quantity has increased. And finally, here this is decrease in demand and decrease in supply. Demand and supply both are falling.
Let D be the original demand curve and S be the original supply curve, and both intersect at point F. So P sub O is the original equilibrium price and Q sub O is the original equilibrium quantity. As demand is decreasing, the new demand curve will be D1, that is, that demand curve will shift parallel leftward, and supply is decreasing. So supply curve will shift leftward parallelly. So S will become S1. And D1 and S1 intersect at this point. So this will be the new equilibrium quantity and this will be the new equilibrium price. Let P sub 1. So equilibrium price falls from equilibrium price increases from P sub 1 to P sub O to P sub 1, and equilibrium quantity falls from Q sub O to Q sub 1. Yeah, D1 and S1 intersect at this point. So these are the 6 scenarios. I have explained diagrammatically 6 scenarios depicting the intersection between demand and supply in determination of equilibrium price and quantity. And this is part 1. In next part of interaction between demand and supply and equilibrium price and quantity, I shall discuss certain case studies. Altogether, I would discuss 10 case studies, and all the case studies cannot be included in one video. So I would make 3 or 4 parts. That is part 2, part 3, part 4 and part 5, maybe part 5. So please look out for those videos. And this is enough for this video. I hope you have understood this well. Still, should you have any doubt in your mind or any query in your mind, please feel free to let me know through the comment section. I shall be more than glad to respond to all your relevant queries and doubts. And if you think the video is beneficial for you, please do share the video with your friends, brothers and sisters, so that they can also get benefit by watching this video. And finally, thank you very much for watching this video. Stay well and goodbye.